guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I have yet another movie review. This movie is a horror film from Argentina, Spanish language, released in the year 2015, directed by Gonzalo Quesada, and this movie is called Resurrecion. So the story of Resurrecion is set in 1821, and Buenos Aires in particular, and as well as the whole of Argentina, have been gripped by the yellow fever plague. So a lot of people have died from this, and this forces a priest to go from Cordoba to Buenos Aires to try and make sense of what's going on. But before he gets to the city, he stops over at where his brother is living in this very secluded area. He finds out that his family have been struck by this plague and that his brother has in fact died, and his sister-in-law and niece are gravely ill. So he is struggling to come to terms with this. He's asking for the help of God. His faith is being put to the ultimate test. But then as he gets to know what's going on a little bit more, he starts to go down a very dark spiral as strangers come into the story and start mixing in and complicating things. And then this is when this priest starts to feel a little bit weird, and he starts to believe that maybe he has actually caught this plague as well. So his faith in God has been put to the test, and whether or not that can get him through this ordeal, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm coming with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Resurrecion. This is a movie that really came out of nowhere. I didn't know what to expect. Now with Argentinian cinema, all the really good films have a lot of hype coming into their cinematic release, but this movie was released yesterday in cinemas, and it was only the day before that I actually heard about this movie. So for that expectation, the fact that it went under everybody's radar, I didn't have high hopes, because I thought this was going to be a simple sort of exorcism film, demonic possession, where it's all that generic sort of stuff, and it's the lazy filmmaking that basically leeches off the name of The Exorcist. So that was my expectation coming into it, but I actually left the cinema really satisfied with what I got. I thought this is a very good film. It's not perfect, but I thought it was very atmospheric, and that is the beauty of the film. It's not so much a straight-out horror film. It's not a demonic possession film. It is a heavily religious film. The undertones are very religious, and it is about having faith in God and the resurrection of Jesus and all that kind of stuff. It does come into play, and it does tease you with the fact that it is going to go down that generic path, but then it is a very welcome surprise, because the paths twist and turn. The plot thickens, there is more put into it, and as each character comes in, there's a strong level of mystery. So on one hand, you've got this superbly atmospheric horror film. The visuals are very striking, but at the other time, you've got a very solid mystery story. So it always captivates you. It's not just playing off its visuals, which a lot of films do. This movie had a visual sense, and it also had a sense of intrigue, of interest. You've got these characters who are all very well played out. You've got the plot that thickens, and it just keeps on getting more and more unpredictable, and you don't know what's going to happen at the end. So after seeing the trailer, I was just really surprised that Gonzalo Quesada has actually taken the time and effort to make a film that is against the tide of the norm. Basically, these worn-out generic sort of demonic possession films, such as The Exorcist, you've got The Last Exorcist, all these films, the Vatican tapes, all these films recently that have come out. So the Resurrecion does go against that, and I for one have to applaud that. So the cinematography was excellent. This is a character-based sort of drama with a lot of strong sort of horror elements brooding around. So it's more of the atmosphere that captures you, and it makes you feel very uneasy, because this dirty atmosphere that the film has really seeps through the screen, and you actually feel the sickness. When these people have the plague, they vomit everywhere, and you can actually feel it, and you start to feel a little bit queasy. And when they're having these fever sort of visions and dreams, you feel like you're going through it as well. So visually, it strikes you to the point where you actually feel like you're going through what they're going through. So it's a movie that really hits you on a horror level through the sickness that these people are facing. It's not necessarily a horror set piece of a ghost face. It's just that overwhelming sense that things are going from bad to worse, and the scenes of the sickness are done very well in that you can actually feel it, and it feels like you have to have a shower at the end of the film. And that shows you how good these visuals actually were. So it was very moody, very gothic, had a lot of fog. It actually felt like a very surreal nightmare. It had the same sort of feel of Guillermo del Toro's The Crimson Peak, where it just felt very, very Victorian. It was set in the older ages, and the fact that it was set in a very isolated community, it doesn't strike you on a broad sense. It just shows you that this was a very claustrophobic and engulfing sort of manner, in that the plague was always around, and because you can't see the plague, you don't know who's going to fall victim to it next. So it feels like the plague has a stranglehold on you, and it makes you run out of breath. It makes you on the edge of your seat, even though something but not particular, menacing might be happening. It's just that overwhelming sort of brooding sense that something really bad is going to happen. So, as I said, there's religious undertones. You've got this priest who is praying, and you've got moments that happen that you think may be, down to the fact that he is, someone of a higher power is looking over him. There's elements there of good versus evil. You've got the power of God versus this plague. And as I said, the characters and the motivations of these characters and the history of these characters makes it very intriguing, and you want to know how it's going to unfold, and that's what captures your attention. A lot of these films, they either have very strong visuals or and nothing else, so it's very superficial. So after a while, you really notice that, but you don't notice this in that because it actually feels like it has a solid platform and it executes it very well. There are some moments of violence, and there are some moments of very strong horror at the end, which I really appreciated, but it's a very slow burn, sort of brooding, atmospheric horror film that a lot of people might enjoy, but if you didn't enjoy the likes of Crimson Peak, then you're probably not going to enjoy this one because it does have that same sort of subtle eeriness that a lot of old day movies have as well. So I thought the score was fantastic, really contributed to the momentum that the atmosphere had. My only problems with the film is that the actors, they do a good job, but there are scenes where it goes on for a little bit too long, and I would have liked it to be edited a little bit more. And there's some of the scenes were a little bit disjointed. They didn't feel like they were very fluent in continuing off each other. It felt like it was just one scene and then another scene and then another scene. So it wasn't like that throughout the whole experience, but there were little moments where I felt it was a little bit disjointed. But overall, as far as Argentinian films are concerned, this is definitely one to put to the very good pile. Great atmosphere, great mysterious story, and it was just the setting design was fantastic, just a very dirty feeling that the film has, and it steers clear of all the generic sort of cliche horror stereotypes. So if you like this kind of stuff, or you think that this might intrigue you, if it gets, hopefully it gets a wider release outside of Latin America. Unfortunately, a lot of these Latin American films actually stay confined to South America, but hopefully this one can be marketed worldwide, because I think it will be a fairly good success, because it is something a little bit different, and it does pay attention to the minor details. So not a perfect film, but certainly not a bad one, and as a result of that, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.